Good evening, everyone. It's Necro Thursday, and we're here with another action-packed episode of the Necromaniacs horror podcast. Welcome back, Mike. It's been a while.
Yes, hello. I am alive. I am here. Hello, listeners. As Mr. Hill just said, you're listening to the Necromaniacs horror podcast, the greatest horror podcast in the world. I am good. It is October, and Halloween movie season is here, Mike.
Oh yeah, the spooky season has officially started, and we're knee deep in all the festivities for sure.
Yes, I listened to the missed episode today that you and Jeff did, and I kind of called what those two scores would be, as the moment the show started, because I've always known that you've liked this movie. That movie came out around the time of like the Brooklyn Monster Factory too, so that's another, like, I always tie my memories of that store in with that movie, actually.
Yeah, it was right around the same time, man. That was that was a good time, definitely.
Oh, hell yeah, hell yeah. You know what was I'm surprised. I think around that time it was like the big rise of the remakes era, right? Because I know you brought up Friday the 13th, but I think there was like a shit ton of other ones that had come out in like 07 and 08, like between 06 and like 08.
Last House on the Left was
yes, and a host of others. And I enjoy some I did not. Really interesting to like take a stroll down, that time period and talk about all those remakes one day. No.
Well, I'm working on what's hopefully is going to turn into a book about the first quarter century and the horror that's happened since the millennium. And there's all these different phases. There's like the rise of found footage. There's like the quote unquote elevated horror, and then there's like the early aughts remakes. All that sort of stuff. And and of course, the new French extremity, which technically started in the late 90s, but was really coming into its own in the early part of
an O's thing. Yeah, it's more of an O's thing. Yeah. And look, one could argue 2000 to 2022 has been gangbusters. I think 2023 is a bit of a questionable year, but as we have said a lot this year on this show, but hey, most of this century has been fantastic.
A lot of innovation too, you know what I mean? A lot of things have changed in horror, and become more of like an art form in some ways, and I think even like the writing and directing and all the acting is like become stepped up quite a bit, especially after the 90s.
Yep.
When horror kind of like, it wasn't the best decade for horror, the 90s, and at least in the United States.
It wasn't. And even the stuff that brought it back, your Screams, I know what you did last summers, your et ceteras, those weren't that good, but they had to happen to bring in the good things that were to come in the 2000s, if that makes sense, right? Like, everything happens for a reason, and horror has its ebbs and flows for a reason. But it's funny. Another thing I wanted to mention was that in America in the last few years, I would say that like I don't know, maybe 4 years, let's say, there's been like the rebirth of American horror. Like this whole horror might have a name, it kind of doesn't really have a name, but I feel like it may, like, historically, like a lot of great shit has happened, like the Terrifiers, and just, I think Skinamarink will go down in history, infamy or history or whatever. But, like you just said, there's been all these different styles and all these different things, and it's definitely book material, definitely.
Totally. And everyone writes about the early, old stuff. There's been tons of books about the 70s, and Italian horror and giallo and all that sort of stuff. And everyone, but the first 25 years, like I want to, continue writing until the first 25 years, like a quarter
That's
century.
A great idea. I like it.
Yeah. And just what inspired me though is just how things have changed though, like awesome stuff, like like the Benson and Moorhead stuff rather, and
yes,
all that, Skinamarink, like the analog horror, lots of interesting stuff has happened, and I think it's book material for sure.
After we're done with our wrap up of the particular movie of the evening, I wanted to talk a little bit about something I watched on Shudder, but I don't want to completely derail us just yet because we have to talk about music first. Because at the beginning of our episodes, Mike, we talk about music.
That's right. We got to talk about that because a lot of musical stuff has happened recently. Like
Yes,
you play Confusion played their first show in how many years, Mike?
16
16
years.
years.
And it went well. I had a great time. We were treated very well by Brooklyn Monarch and John Scanlon at Miles to Go. It was a treat to play with fucking Killing Time and Terror. I mean, look, Terror to me are the hardcore band of the 21st century, 100%. I mean, you just watch them. It's hard to not watch them and just be like, oh yeah, these guys know what they're fucking doing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just something about them that just grabs you, you know? But, and Killing Time had a great set. Anthony was, firing on all cylinders. But for Confusion, I think we did really good. I mean, we there's some changes in the band. I'm on vocals instead of bass, and we have our original guitar player, Mike Price, and we had new bassist Ted Hampton, and none other than Rich O'Brien from Darkside NYC on drums. But this unit is I will say here to stay, and expect some more live fun from us in the near future, Mike Hill.
I'll be there. The only reason I was not at that show is because I was down the street at the Cannibal Corpse Mayhem show at just literally blocks away from where you guys played. But we got there literally right before Mayhem started playing because I had another podcast to record that late afternoon that got dangerously close to conflicting with going to the show. So yeah,
we went on like at 6:55 sharp, like 7 o'clock. We did like a 25-minute set, which is perfect. Learned some things over the years about the younger hardcore kids. Your sets need to be short because that's the attention span. And I tell you what, one other thing I wanted to say was this: two bands in particular that were excellent that were on the bill from California. One is a band also on Days called Big Boy. They were fucking really cool. They were very, complimentary to Confusion. And then the band Soul Search from California, the two of the guys in the band came up to me and were talking to me, and they said, we wouldn't be a band without Confusion and Demise. And I went, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, this is our favorite kind of New York hardcore. And that's what, like, we kind of modeled our sound after that era of New York hardcore. And I was like, holy shit, thank you so much, man. Like,
man.
Yeah, awesome. Dude. Like, and honestly, like watching them and listening, I went, yep, I hear what they're talking about. I heard it in the riffing for sure. And I thought that they were just like an excellent band. And there was one other really good band too. It was like a 12-band fest called Mongrel, who were super heavy. I want to check out more of their shit. But I mean, all the bands were good, But those guys, the three bands I just mentioned, really stuck out to me. I enjoyed them a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. I'll be at the next one for sure. Just like I had those tickets for like months.
Oh, dude. I mean, how? I would have been there. I literally don't miss Cannibal Corpse in New York for 20, almost 30 years. So, they're my jam. You and I were at their last show in New York together, I believe, at Brooklyn Steel. No,
I was there. That was kind of at the tail end of COVID too, and it was like
yes.
So it was cool that this time around I actually got a chance to catch up with Eric Rutan, and I haven't seen him in a couple of years. So we chilled and hung out and talked got a good hangout in with him. And it's funny because my girlfriend Tina is like a huge fan of George Fisher, his Instagram, because he has all that stuff with the plushies and the kids and everything. So on the way out to the show, she's like, "Oh, do you think I could meet, George Corpse Grinder? I love his Instagram, right?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. The dude's like, I don't want to be like that guy,
Yeah.
So afterwards, after the show, we were hanging out with Eric, and who comes by? George Corpse Grinder.
Wow.
And I was like, there he is. Go introduce yourself to him. And she's like, no, I can't, you know. So I asked Rutan to like introduce her to George, and they had this nice conversation. And he talked about his wife and kids, and really, really nice guy. I'd never met him before, and really, really, really sweet guy.
Well, I have a little story to share. I met him when I was 19 because they opened for Confusion and Next Step Up in 1993, his band Corpse Grinder. How about that?
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't that wild? Um, then okay, I mean, that was so long ago, dude. I mean, January of 93, that's 30 years ago. It was Confusion's first time playing up there, our first of many times. It was at a youth hall, like a fucking youth center that was like packed to the gills in like 5-degree weather. You know, it was a lot of fun, you know. And they played, and then a couple years later, I believe he was at one of those death fests at the Wetlands while he was still in Monstrosity, or this literally might have been when Monstrosity played the Wetlands with him. Memory's a little fuzzy. And my boy Tom, who booked those shows, introduced me to him back then. So these are two instances a very long time ago that I'm sure he would not remember at all. But, you know, it just goes to show, I mean, the guy's like a legend guy that's been around a long time with like an excellent reputation. So I'm sure he was really cool to chill with.
Yeah, nah, he's a really nice guy, you know. But yeah, I just been going to lots of shows, dude. I saw Twin Tribes. I saw, you know, that Mayhem Cannibal show. I was at Lebanon, Hanover last night. Just a lot of good shit going on. A lot of good live music happening right now.
Do tell, what is Lebanon Hangover?
Oh man, they're like I would say they're kind of like a minimalist, like electronic goth, you know,
Hmm.
a little bit of industrial, not really that much industrial, but like so good, dude. I don't know how. I think I'm trying to remember how I even got into them, but I mean that's my shit. That's my style. Like I love all that kind of sad, you know, stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just
I got stuff too. I wasn't familiar with them. Um, what do you call it? Yeah, Stella and I saw Twin Tribes last year at one of those like the Murder of Crows Fest, and I actually thought they were very good.
yeah, they're great. They were really cool. They look cool, man. Like the bass player in that band just had this look, dude. He looked like a satanic like cowboy, you know. It was, I don't know, it was so cool. They were great, you know.
Yeah, they're kind of blown up. Like I would. It seems like they're like considerably bigger in a year's time. I almost feel
Yeah,
like.
yeah, because their last album was great. You know, Ceremony's
Mm.
like an incredible record, you know. But yeah, you know, just been doing that, and we got some dates coming up October next weekend actually. With
Yes, we'll be
all out
there.
war and funeral leech, and
Mhm.
you know, so we've just been practicing a lot, you know, getting everything tightened up and ready to roll, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun night at Gold Sounds in Brooklyn if you are in the New York area. And shout out the other two clubs, the other two dates.
All right, so the 13th is some hall somewhere in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm one of these guys.
No,
And
I
then
think a lot of shows happen there. I can't think of the name right now. I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
you can go to like phillyshows.com and they have it listed, or you can just go to my Instagram or the Tombs Instagram where there's flyers for it. And then
Yeah.
the Sunday show, we return to Dusk in Providence, Rhode Island, which is a really cool small little club up there.
Mhm.
And I love Providence. Providence is like one of my favorite cities, and it's always a good time playing there. And it'll be really cool to like play and share the stage at All Out War, like two bands that have a lot in common musically, but couldn't have less in common as far as fans go.
Well, it'll be some worlds colliding, which is great.
Oh yeah,
Lucas from Funeral Leech was at the Confusion show. I was telling him I was looking forward to seeing his band, and I think Funeral Leech is one of the best death metal bands in New York City. I've been saying that for a while, and stoked to see them too.
I saw them at that. There was that big show with Immolation. Remember that one a couple years ago?
Yes, yeah, I miss them. I fucking miss them. Yeah, I
Yeah,
miss them.
that was cool. Like they were really great, and they're an excellent band. And I really was looking. I've actually hoped that we would share the stage with those guys at some point, you know. And here we are. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Before we roll into the movie of the evening, kids, We're going to run down the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. On Monday, Mike, who do we got?
Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. He's another horror podcast, except that he is an interview show where we talk about the movies. He talks about filmmakers, actors, all that sort of stuff. And occasionally we're on there as guests.
That's right. Occasionally. Yeah. On Tuesday, you have the greatest metal podcast in the land, Jackie Smith's Into the Necrosphere. I'm an episode behind on that bad boy, but I always tune in. Don't forget, Into the Necrosphere every Tuesday for all your metal needs. On Wednesday, you have Mike Hill's own Everything Went Black podcast. Mike, who do we got coming up on there this week?
One of your friend, Eddie McNamara, is coming up.
Yes, that's right.
Or actually, at the time this airs, he will have been on already. And
Ed McNamara wrote a cool book called Brooklyn Hardcore that may or may not mention a Necromaniacs co-host and his band, or I don't know. You'll have to read the book to find out. I don't know. They might be in there. Who knows?
If you haven't listened to that episode, for sure, check it out because we talk about a bunch of really intense stuff and really cool. Very, very nice guy. I look forward to meeting him at some point in the future, the near future, hopefully.
Yeah, and, he goes to a lot of shows.
Probably have him on again, I imagine, at some point because he ain't going anywhere, and he's gonna be writing more books. So I'm sure I'll have him on the show again at some point.
That's right, to plug his next book on Thursday, kids. We're rolling along with, well, you're listening to it right now, the Necromaniacs podcast, the greatest horror podcast in the world. Who do we got on Friday, Mike?
The artist formerly known as Break the Apocalypse, and I always forget the name, man.
They're called Spitball Media. And what's really shitty is that they need to change their graphic on the platforms, because although it says Spitball Media, it still says Break the Apocalypse on the graphic. So I have to send a little note to John Draper about that. I was meaning to tell him the other day. I forgot. But yeah, tune into those guys. They have made a bit of a flex to talking about nothing but movies, television, entertainment media. And it's a cool, fun podcast. They talk about a lot of horror stuff, but they don't really do horror reviews like we do. It kind of runs the gamut. Saturday, you've got a day off, enjoy the fall weather. But on Sunday, come back for none other than Carl Hikara's Soul Knocks podcast, right, Mike?
That's right. And, Carl and I have been collaborating on this other thing called Darkness Weaves, which where we cover the work of Carl Edward Wagner. And we trade off, short stories. And that's a lot of fun. And we're going to continue doing that with some of his other material. So that's going to be great. And then, of course, lurking in the shadows, we have Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by Cheyenne of the great band Trivax.
It's so funny when everyone says Cheyenne of Trivax. You realize that sounds like a Conan the Barbarian character, right? Like Cheyenne.
That's like that's such a sick thing to have a name like that.
Right. Like it just kind of rolls together, like it sounds like something out of a movie,
Cheyenne kind of looks like a character in a Conan story, sort of. He's all jacked and everything,
Nice. Very cool. We only have cool people, guys. Everybody's got to be cool,
That's right.
Fuck that shit. But there you have it, folks. The horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse.
We got one call this week on the Necro phone. And if you want to call into the show and leave a voicemail, it's 908-913-0782. I think somebody thought that someone was actually going to pick up the phone when they called.
Really?
I saw in the voicemails, there was a number came up, but there was no voicemail. So, maybe it was a robocall or something like that, but I thought that was interesting. You know what I mean? But anyway, this week we got Emilio from Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And, he's a return caller, and I'm glad to hear from him again.
Hey guys, this is Emilio from Pennsylvania. I'm driving back home, and I just finished listening the chapter or the episode about the Woman in Black. I had the chance to see that movie, the TV movie, probably, I don't know, more than 50 years ago in bootlegs, DVD that I was able to get when I was in Mexico. But I wanted to share with you, and I don't know, well, I probably you don't know about, there was this play in Mexico, actually, it still is a play, has been for over 20 years, about the woman in black. But as a play, which is kind of awesome because usually is made in very small theaters, probably less than 100 people, less than 100 you guys in the audience. And I saw it twice. The first time that I saw it was with Germán Robles in one of the characters. And Germán Robles, in case you don't know, was one of the most famous actors that played as vampires in Mexican movies. So it was a super interesting approach, seeing that as a play instead of as a movie. So that's one of the things that I want to share. The second is, I don't know, guys, maybe it's a little bit too late. When you hear that, probably it's late. This on October the 1st and October the 4th, there will be the 15th anniversary. Well, they will be showing in theaters the Exorcist again, the 50th anniversary. So I got my tickets. I know that, it's going to be the first time, I think, that I will be able to see that movie in the big screen. And last, probably you have seen, or I'm not sure if you have seen, the movie from Spain called Thesis. And it's a kind of a found footage, a little bit gory movie. If not, you can see it. You can look for it. Again, it's Thesis or Thesis. So guys, well, I'm driving back home, so stay safe, stay healthy, and be safe. And thank you for everything. Take care. Bye.
So, Emilio, do me a favor. Did you say Feces is the name of that movie? So please clarify. Send us a DM, like, or something like that, because this movie sounds interesting that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I don't know. Thanks for calling, dude, and thanks for bringing. We always like to hear about stuff, things that we might have seen. And if it's a movie called Feces, I definitely haven't seen it.
No, me neither. We'd remember that. I mean,
that would be a memorable thing. Yeah.
Feces. Well, he brought up something kind of cool. A stage production of The Woman in Black, huh?
Yeah, that's very cool. I can see that because it has that sort of vibe to it of a play,
Yeah, I need to peep this OG one, man. I enjoyed the one with Harry Potter. I enjoyed that movie, actually.
Yeah, the original though is just got so much more atmosphere, and it's Nigel Neal was the writer, and he's like a OG UK film writer,
Very cool. Thanks for the phone call. Please, listeners, give us a call more. We'll put you on the air, right, Mike?
Yeah, we've been getting the nice, regular stream of callers. It's cool. Sometimes it's one, sometimes a couple people call in, and I appreciate it, man. It's really nice hearing from people, and I got to say it makes the show like even more cooler to do it.
Hells yeah. Well, folks, tonight to kick off this early October episode, we're going back to the 70s, and we're covering an area that we haven't covered in a very long time, actually. It's a Hammer film, and it is none other than Dracula AD 1972, released on September 28th, 1972. Mike, I think the last Hammer film we did was a couple of years back, the werewolf movie, Curse of the Werewolf.
Curse of the Werewolf. Yep.
Yes. Wow. How many years ago was that? Jesus.
Dude, I was still living in Greenpoint, so it had to have been like 2017, maybe.
No. All right. Well, I'll have to do some digging and double check. When you've been on the air for 9 years, folks, it gets a little fuzzy. But yeah, we love Hammer here. We're not Hammer experts, Mike Hill. Would you agree?
Experts. However, I'm a huge fan of their catalog, and I'm surprised we haven't done more. And I got to be honest. I feel like I'm ashamed to say that I'm not as knowledgeable with Hammer horror films as I really wish I was.
I know a thing or two, as they say. You know, I love Christopher Lee. I've seen, look, I've seen all of his Draculas, and then I would have to say I've seen maybe more than half a dozen non, uh, Christopher Lee non Dracula Hammers. I mean, maybe I have seen 20 Hammer films. I definitely own 20 at least Hammer films between Blu-rays and these very cool DVD collections that I own of Hammer films, which was how I watched Dracula AD 1972. It's a 4-on-1 WB two-sided DVD, folks, with Horror of Dracula, Dracula's Risen from the Grave, Taste the Blood of Dracula, and Dracula AD 1972, all in one place, Michael. How fun is that?
That's very cool.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, this is the 7th Hammer film featuring Dracula, but the 6th to star Christopher Lee in the title role. Come on, man. Who is better as Dracula than Christopher Lee?
I gotta say, he's probably my favorite Dracula. You know, I like the Peter Cushing as Van Helsing and the Christopher Lee as Dracula combo.
I mean, shit. I wish there was like 10 more with these two guys in them. But I mean, you could only make so many. And some argue they would, decline in quality as the years passed. But honestly, I enjoy the hell out of almost every single Hammer movie I watch, Mike.
I'm pretty good, success rate with Hammer as well.
Yeah.
I haven't seen all their stuff, but yeah, there's like most all the Dracula ones are cool, like the Frankenstein ones, like the Curse of the Werewolf is great. There's another one called Creeping Flesh, which you ever see that one?
It's on one of these sets that I own, but I have not peeped that one. No.
That's a really good one, man. It's like doesn't have Dracula or Frankenstein in it or a werewolf. It's like a totally different. It's like a weird tale almost. It's very interesting. Nigel Neal might have written it, for all I know. It seems like something that he would write.
The other interesting thing about this one is that it's the first to feature Lee and Cushing in their respective, Helsing Dracula roles since the 58 Dracula, which was like, the big fucking premiere one, which is a very cool movie. After this one was the final Christopher Lee Dracula movie, The Satanic Rites of Dracula, also directed by the director of this film, Alan Gibson. Have you seen that Dracula?
That one I've seen, and I think I mentioned this to you before we started recording. I'd never actually seen this film before because it, as I was growing up watching these movies, it was something that I just was like, I don't know, man, doesn't look like I really dig this, like it didn't look as like dark as like kind of like this hippie vibe to it, but I have a different opinion of it than I did when I was like 16,
Yeah. Well, honestly, nothing was more uncool in the 80s than the 70s. Let's be honest. So
yeah.
If you're an 80s horror kid and you have the chance to see Dracula AD 72, or you have the chance to see Friday the 13th Part 6 or Hellraiser, well, you know what you're going to watch, right? I mean, it's, it kind of is what it is. But as you get older, and as you say, either appreciate 70s horror more or you appreciate older horror more, you watch this for the first time, you're fucking bugging out. I hear you.
Yeah, because like I just like the gothic nature of the story, back the period piece elements of it, especially with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing just killing it as Van Helsing and Dracula. Those guys are just they're killing it every time they play those roles, So let's kind of get into like what this is about. We're talking about it. We're kind of skirting around it here,
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. So it starts off in 1872. In the current, what you would think of as the current Dracula era.
Yep.
But then Dracula's, looks like he's killed, he's buried,
He's like impaled from a carriage crash. Like, it's kind of like this cool end battle. It starts with a cool end battle scene between Van Helsing and Dracula. Yeah.
And then, but we also have, at the quote unquote funeral, we have this very, very hip looking guy, who by the strict telling of Dracula, I would say that he would have been like a Renfield sort of character. He would have been Renfield. Right?
Yes, in a way, sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Johnny
And
Alucard. Yes.
Johnny Alucard. Yes.
Mhm.
So he's kind of one of the acolytes of Dracula.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like I thought this was very cool because then it shifts into the future. Well, the past for us now, but the future at the time of this, or the present at the time this film was made.
Yeah.
And we basically see the Van Helsing line in 1972. Of course, Peter Cushing is playing like Van Helsing, and then it's his granddaughter,
Jessica.
Jessica Van Helsing. Okay.
Yeah, Peter Cushing plays two roles. He plays, the OG Van Helsing in 1872, and then he plays an older gentleman in 1972, Lawrence Van Helsing, who is a descendant. And then we've got the granddaughter, Jessica. So they're all descendants of the OG.
Yeah, they're in that bloodline of the
Right.
vampire killer family, and Lawrence Van Helsing is a master of the occult, and his daughter or his granddaughter is kind of like, oh yeah, these books that you have, I saw these at some random bookstores for sale and stuff because
she's not really taking it seriously. She's a woman of her time. She's kind of like, it's all right. In 72, swinging London is kind of over, but in the early 70s, you still have a bit of that late 60s aesthetic going on, and it's still kind of fun times happening in London. You know what I'm saying, Mike?
Exactly. We see some of these fun times, and we also see the later version of Johnny Alucard, aka Renfield. And now that hat that he was wearing, because there's a party at some rich house, like rich family's house.
Yes.
There's a band performing, right? And the band is called what the hell's the name of the band?
The Stone Ground.
Stone Ground.
Yep.
A California psychedelic band.
Yeah.
Tearing it up, playing like some psychedelic
Yeah,
acid
the music
rock.
is pretty good. Yeah. And it's this great party scene where everybody's dancing. And honestly, it's straight up like Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, Electric Wizard. Like, where they got their shit from. Like, right, Mike? I mean, come on. It's like totally that vibe. Like, you could like freeze frame the dances from this movie and like superimpose like Uncle Acid music over it, and it'll be the coolest thing ever. Like, if you wanted some kind of like visual and audio, cue for this scene, listeners, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, and so Johnny Alucard, he's got this really cool hat, by the way.
Yes.
And just looks like a guy who just makes the scene, And so there's a group of these like hipster types, these like British hipsters.
Yep.
And he's kind of like the ringleader of this little group.
Mm-hmm.
And he introduces the occult element with his his rituals that he wants to do, which would be to resurrect Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the setting of this whole thing.
Via a black mass, because he's like, they're looking for kicks, kids. It's 1972. They got these kind of late teens, early 20s happening people, and they're looking to have some fun. And Johnny Alucard is like, you want to have some real fun? We're going to do this black mass at a deconsecrated church. So, yeah.
Things were, I guess, back then. If you think about it, like the early 70s, it was kind of the aftermath of like the Manson murders, and people were getting into like, there was like a darkness in the early part of the 70s as a result of a lot of these things.
100%, and that's what this movie plays on, and it's to me it's a great idea. Mike and I were chatting a little bit before this, how some Hammer purists, and yes, there are Hammer purists, have scoffed at this movie or saw it as the beginning of the end of Hammer. But honestly, the movie's a riot, and it's a lot of fun, and there are legit Dracula scenes, there's legit vampire scenes, and some, you have the ridiculously hot and awesome Caroline Munro in this movie. There's a lot to like, Mike.
Oh yeah, definitely. And they're fixated on Jessica Van Helsing and using her as this, as the sort of linchpin to the resurrection of Dracula. So there's like this whole plot this whole subplot of trying to get her and use her as like the sacrificial element of their ritual.
Yes, because Johnny is aware of who she is. Her friends have no idea who she is. Like they know her as Jessica, Jessica Van Helsing. They don't know about her, family history and blah blah blah. But Johnny, who literally is a resurrected person from the past and is a minion of Dracula, knows all about her, and she is the key target, as Mike said. At this point, Dracula has not appeared. Basically, it takes the killing of one of the other young ladies and the spilling of her blood for Christopher Lee to fully appear. Hi, Mike.
Now, who is that? She looked really familiar, man. But I was looking in the cast, and the name wasn't familiar to me.
Which one?
The one who ends up getting sacrificed.
Oh, the first one to die. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, a lot of these people do look a little familiar. I mean, they might have been in other Hammer films, but yeah, I hear you.
I thought she was like, like some well-known actress, but apparently not, because I mistook her for someone else.
Oh, but you're not talking about Caroline Monroe, the dark-haired girl, because she's like the second to die, I think. I don't think she's the first.
Yeah, no, I knew who she was. She was in Maniac, and yeah, totally. Yeah.
Gotcha. It's funny looking at the cast of credits on Wikipedia. It says the Stone Ground as themselves, and Stone Ground do have their own Wikipedia page, folks. How about that?
Yeah, they're
legit band.
I'm gonna try to find some of their stuff. It's definitely along the lines of something I really would get into too.
Totally.
I mean, the plot in this thing is actually pretty straightforward. It's more about just the vibe, I think, of the whole, 70s and, this kind of like witchiness of the 70s and this, dark sort of hippie vibe,
Yeah, the first girl to die is Laura Bellows. That's her character's name, but I'm trying to find the actress's name. And wait a minute, hold the phone. Wait, that's Caroline Monroe. If she's the first to go.
I didn't think she was the first one to get killed, though. All right, well, there you go. Stand corrected.
No, yeah, it is her. It is her. We were misremembering, folks. Forgive us. Yes, it is Caroline Monroe, the lovely and talented. She is the first victim, and basically, yeah, it kind of sucks because honestly, I like seeing her on the screen. She's like kind of the standout of the first like half hour of the movie, 20 minutes of the movie. There's like this bloody ritual, and Johnny Alucard the next day is like, oh, it was a joke, right? And he, even though Laura is surprise, really dead and can't be found, he convinces the rest of the crew that it was all a joke and that she went off, to go see a family member or something like that. But then the next day, there's some kids playing near that deconsecrated church, and there's a scene where they find the body, and thus the murder investigation begins, right?
That's correct. Yeah. One of the coolest things is when Dracula actually appears. You know what I mean? And Alucard is trying to like take some kind of credit for it. Like he is entitled to becoming an immortal. As a result of him resurrecting Dracula. But Dracula is like, it was my will.
Yeah, I know. He's like, fuck that.
Like, you didn't do anything. It's all me.
Yeah.
It was my will.
So Alucard, even though, again, there is one young woman dead at this point, he brings yet another one of the crew, Gaynor Keating, to St. Barthoff's again, where she is killed by Dracula himself. And at this point, I don't think and then it says Alucard volunteers to become a vampire. So he's not a vampire yet, he's still a minion. He's
it's like I said, he's like the familiar
Renfield, right.
Renfield, and that's his whole thing. Like his scheme was to resurrect Dracula, and he sort of held it out over his head, like, oh, look at now you owe it to me, basically. And that's when Dracula's like, what are you talking about? I'm Dracula, you're nothing. this was all done because of my will, you know?
Yeah. So Christopher Lee does actually, of course, surprise, turn him into a vampire. And he manages to turn Jessica's boyfriend into a vampire as well. Which
Yeah,
was
that's kind of like a little change of pace where it's like dudes turning into vampires, getting bitten by dudes, you know?
Well, that's because 2 of the 3 girls are dead at this point. So, you know, they're killing off the women first, basically. What is it? The scene with the running water? It's funny. This is one of the few movies where the Dracula lore, the vampire lore, where they say that running water, not necessarily holy water, but running water can kill a vampire, huh?
So I thought that was interesting because I'd never really been aware of that as a thing, you know?
Me neither. Because that's how Alucard gets like taken out literally by a bathtub, which is kind of silly. But I mean, look, it's 1972. It's not fucking perfect.
Yeah.
uh getting a little ahead there. I actually really liked the like Alucard as like a villain, you know.
It's a great villain.
Yeah. There's just kind of something about him. The actor is Christopher Nemi, by the way. um Great actor, I think.
He
Great
also just had he had a good look, you know.
Yeah, no, totally. Hold on, I want to see. I feel like he did other shit. Well, yeah, he's in 1971's Lust for a Vampire. Um, oh, he actually was on Dynasty for the last season of Dynasty. And he is in 1989's License to Kill, Mike. How about that? As Fallon. And some other small roles. He has a small role as a maitre d' in Ghostbusters Part 2. How about that?
Oh, yeah. He was working, you know.
Yeah, Lust for a Vampire is actually a pretty cool British flick as well. It's another Hammer film, by the way. Uh, sorry to take us away from our feature film of the evening, but yeah, I mean, look, I could see why maybe some people like it might be a little too 70s cheese, but to me, I feel like that's a part of the fun and appeal of the movie. No,
I mean, it doesn't have that grim, heavy vibe, like that gothic feel, like, you know, like what you think of Dracula, you know. This is like almost like a fun, campy send up of it, you know.
yeah, and it has really cool music. I actually have the score on vinyl. It got released like a couple of years ago, like reissued. I don't know if you paid much attention to the music, but the background score is pretty fucking rad in this movie.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love film scores, and that's definitely something I noticed in this movie.
Yeah, it has like a cool cover. I'm trying to think who put it out. It's either Waxworks or like one of those, but it was
Yeah.
like probably like right before like the big vinyl horror boom. It kind of came out, you know. But it is somewhere in the collection. I have to dig it out. I'll take some photos for the Instagram kids. Um, so yeah, I mean, things start to unravel as they do. Um, and look, I basically, you know, the elder Van Helsing enters the picture finally, right?
Yes.
And I kind of wanted, I guess, a little more of that, you know, but I mean, we got a little bit of that at the very beginning of the movie. But I think the movie was really more about like Jessica and like the younger people, you know? Like I feel like Peter Cushing was somewhat underused in this movie, no?
Yeah, I mean the thing. Yeah, that's the vibe I got too. That they wanted to make it about these young, like hip people, and
Mhm.
Van Helsing, aka Peter Cushing, was like you know, in the background. You know, he's more of a background like
Yeah,
character till
like
the
they
end.
wanted these guys back. They wanted Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. At this point, they're a little older. Cushing, it's funny, like he looks pretty goddamn old in this movie, and it's 72. And then like he's in the first Star Wars, like 5 years later. I mean, he acted like as physically as long as he could, man, huh? Wow.
I mean, dude, Peter Cushing, one of my idols, dude. I love Peter
Hmm.
Cushing. I mean,
Oh
that dude is
yeah.
just like he's the man. You know, I love him. I love him in everything I've ever seen him in. You know.
He died in 1994 at the age of 81. So, dude, he was only 62 when he did Dracula AD 1972. Mike, he looks way older now.
People lived a lot different back then. You know what I mean? It's not like now where like
Yeah,
Barbara
62 now,
Crampton.
right. I guess you're right. You're right.
Yeah, like Barbara Crampton's got to be like 62, but she looks like she's 30. You know what I mean?
Yes. Wow. 60, he was 62 there. I thought he was way older. Holy
Yeah, I thought
shit.
it was way older than that too, no doubt. You know,
Well, Christopher Lee, as we all know, lived another way longer than 81. Let's see, he died. How old was he when he died? 93. So there you go. Yeah, back
another just like mensch, you know, Christopher Lee, just like these two guys, like you. That's the thing. That's my beef with this with this movie. It's the conflict between Peter Cushing's character of Van Helsing and Christopher Lee's Dracula, and it's like it got a little unfocused for me because I mean, and that's just my thing, I guess. I mean, the movie's cool, but like, I just really wanted to see that conflict because at the end of the day, it comes down to those guys facing off. You know what I mean?
Right, right. But I think Hammer might have just been conscious of the times and conscious of where horror was in 1972 and where Hammer was at this point. It was, it was the end of the line. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like when you watch those really late era Giallos or you watch those late era, like, you know what I'm saying? When you're watching the late era Halloween movies or Friday the 13th movies, it's like, the party is almost over, you know? But again, I maintain this is a good Hammer movie. I don't, I'm not throwing really much shade at all. I watch this movie like once a year, I mean, it's just like a fun kind of like Saturday afternoon in October movie, Mike.
Oh yeah, totally. You know, and it's like it's kind of like a lesser known film too. Like I said, this is the first time I ever watched it. Like I'd never even seen this movie before, and I knew of its existence, but I just never. It just didn't seem like I would be into it. You know.
Mm.
But I did end up liking it.
Oh yeah. Again, a lot to like.
Yeah.
The thing is, let's see. I don't know. Going beat by beat for this one, it's like I kind of feel like there are listeners who know this movie very well, and then there are people who've never seen it before. I mean, it's not like it's some big shocking surprise ending. Uh, Dracula kind of bites it at the end, folks, right?
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Um, the thing is, there is a spell that Jessica is under, and it's kind of just like the 70s, again, cheesy but in a respectable way, kind of like ending clashes at the end, right?
Yeah, and you know that the ending for me, I thought was like a little, I don't know, it was I felt a little unsatisfied with the ending. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it was cool. I enjoyed it. I probably will watch this again,
Yeah.
and it
You're
was a good.
looking like if you're looking for the more like traditional Draculas, I mean, you can watch Horror of Dracula and Dracula's Risen from the Grave and Taste the Blood of Dracula. Uh, you'll get kind of more Christopher Lee for your buck, as they say. Um, but yeah, I think this movie was, I think Hammer's attempt at doing something a little different and being modern, and it's mixed results because what's funny is that like horror in 1972 was getting kind of dead serious, actually. What came after this, like to me, like 72, like I think of like Last House on the Left in America, and then like in America by 73, it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then every fucking 70s movie after that is fucking brutally, deadly, dark, serious.
Totally. And this is kind of like an end of an era, and like, and all right. So you know what? Now we're kind of at that point. I'm interested to see what you would actually rate this film.
I give it a 4 actually because it's fun. It has Caroline Monroe dancing around. It's got Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. I don't know. I enjoy this movie. I like the music. I love the poster. I love like I don't know. I like the era. I'm like a mark for like London in the 60s and 70s. So I actually gave this a 4.
But I gave it a 4 too, believe it or not.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, dude, it's funny because like I'm like, maybe because in the last couple films that we did, they've been such right up my alley. Like I've loved them. And this one I didn't like as much. So to me, a 4, like I said, I mentioned that I'll watch this again for sure. I mean, I'll probably end up buying this on Blu-ray or whatever and pull it out and watch it every now and then, along with another Dracula film. Maybe as like a kind of double feature type of evening or whatever. It had its issues. Like there wasn't enough Van Helsing, Peter Cushing Van Helsing. I did like Alucard. I enjoyed his character. The 70s vibe was cool. The band, the music was good. But the ending was a little, I thought, you guys could check it out. You let me know what you think of the ending. The ending was like a little, a little anticlimactic. You know what I mean?
I hear you. Regarding the soundtrack, it was composed by former Manfred Mann member Mike Vickers, and it has a funky, quote, blaxploitation style that reflects the early 70s setting of the film. I totally get it.
Yeah.
The vinyl I have does not have any stone ground on it. However, a 2009 CD came with bonus tracks, the 2 songs by the Stone Ground that are in the movie, You Better Come Through for Me and Alligator Man. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of interesting. The very beginning, that opening sequence was actually not in the prior Dracula movie. The prior Dracula movie was called Scars of Dracula. It kind of looks like it came out of that, but it actually was newly shot footage, which is interesting. I was wondering if it was like a takeoff from Scars of Dracula, because if you watch the movie, it's extremely similar. But no, that was apparently new footage. The hammer that
as a
yes, and
Dracula
the hammer that follows this, Satanic Rites, 1973. Like I said earlier, has the same director. I think I'm going to do a Satanic Rites of Dracula very, very soon, Mike Hill. I got to peep that.
You know what? That's actually a really good idea, man. I wouldn't mind doing all of the Hammer Draculas because those are great, and like I said, now I think I've seen all of them because this is one of the films I have never seen. So now I feel like I think I'm going to get this on Blu-ray just to be a completist because I have the material. Yeah,
Of
I
course.
slept on it all these years.
I figured you would like it. Of course, Roger Ebert gave this movie a 1 out of 4 back in 1972. He called it an abortive and totally unimaginative attempt to update the Bram Stoker legend to present-day Chelsea. Lighten up, Roger. Let's see. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, DVD Verdict said Dracula 1872 is one of the weakest installments of the Hammer franchise, but will have a strong appeal to Dracula completists. One can have fun with this movie, but mostly because of its faults. It's cheese, but it's professionally made cheese that's much better acted and staged than it has any right to be. Yeah, but that's part of the appeal to me. Like I like it. Like I like the cheese. I like the swinging London. Like I like the, the 70s-esque of it. You know what I'm saying? Get this. This is one of Tim Burton's favorite films, Michael.
I could see that.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah,
he loves this movie. Listeners, if you want to get it, you can get it on Blu-ray. It came out in 2018 via the Warner Archive Collection. I have a 2005 Warner Home Video 4-on-1 DVD, which still works quite lovely. It's a lot of fun. I think you should see this movie if you haven't, listeners.
Well, hell yeah.
What I want to talk about, I was watching Cursed Films on Shudder. Have you watched the Cursed Films?
Yes, I have.
Well, there was one I didn't know. I somehow missed this one, and I watched it last night. The Cannibal Holocaust Cursed Films. Did you see that one?
I want to say yes, but I'm drawing a blank as to whether or not I actually saw it because I did watch the entire series, so I must have seen it. Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm a Cannibal Holocaust guy. It's pretty much the only jungle horror movie I like. I saw it in the theater in 2003, and I don't think I ever got over that personally. Because it was one of those movies that prior to 2003, I never ever saw before. I'd only read about it in horror magazines and just knew about its infamous word of mouth. But it's fucking great because they have all the actors who were alive from it on it, and this Deodato's on it because, you know, before he died, this was filmed. Like, really interesting takeaways and like factoids about what the fuck went on during that movie. Most of it is not good at all. But the one interesting thing is towards the very end, this one guy, it was a guy from Vinegar Syndrome, and then another film historian guy that said something that I never thought about, but it makes perfect sense. That this movie in 80 is literally it's like the end of the Italian genre cinema run. And it totally lines up not just with the year, but like it lines up in the fact that like this movie killed Italian genre cinema. Like after this movie, it was like, if you really think about it, like the giallos are done. Like a lot of the horror is almost like kind of done to a degree. Like it was so fucked up and so over the top that like this guy goes like, you know, how does something end? It ends kicking and screaming for its life. And he goes, much like this movie, it signaled the complete end of the genre cinema in Italy. And I was like, wow, I never thought about Cannibal Holocaust like that. Like, because dude, it got banned everywhere, got yanked from the theater. Deodato got arrested. Some of the producers got arrested. It was just like a shit show. So listeners, if you have not seen the Cannibal Holocaust episode of Cursed Films and you're a Deodato enthusiast or a Cannibal Holocaust enthusiast, you need to see this episode. It's fucking great.
Maybe I need to revisit it. I also read a book about it too. There was like a
Mhm.
book about the making of it and go into all that, you know, the stuff that you were mentioning.
Yeah.
And I do. I did watch all the Cursed films, but maybe I'm confusing the book and the actual docu-series part of it. You know what I mean?
Dare I say, Mike, it is worth watching again. That's how good I thought it was. You know, the Exorcist one is good. Like, there's some that are good, but this one is like really good because I mean, look, man, how often are you going to see an in-depth thing about this movie? Like, you know, like it doesn't like you're not going to see it that often. Like, you know, like, and now a couple of these people aren't with us anymore, so it's like it paints a really interesting picture about Deodato and how scarred and traumatized these actors were. You could like see it on their faces like 40 whatever years later. Like it's like really interesting. And about how, you know, like the native locals and how they got involved. Like it's just really wild and dark. Like, and Deodato is like a sadist, man. Like the things that you learn, like it's just, I
Oh, me.
For sure.
Yeah, it like you feel so bad for these actors. Like it's very interesting. And it's like like I said, some stuff I knew, but some stuff I definitely did not know. So I was like, oh shit, you know. Dude, I took my old girlfriend to see that movie on a date in 2003, and it was bad.
That's not something. That's not a date movie.
Well, no, she was a horror head too. Yeah. But it was just like we both felt so terrible afterwards. Oh my God. It was wild. Oh man.
About that, did we, that film? I don't know if it's something we should talk about, but that's like, I'm trying to think, that was never something that came up as a possibility, you know?
No, I mean, look, a part of me would watch it again. It's just like it's like a hate watch. Like I hate that movie. Like I have a lot of love for that movie, believe it or not. It is a one of a kind, like tour de force movie, in my opinion. You know, like it is the found footage movie, in my opinion. Like there's no Blair Witch without this movie, 100%. Like it's just on another level than Blair Witch. It seems like you're watching a documentary in that same way that like when you're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like you're living it, like, you know. But maybe.
We'll consider it. You know, put it out on the table and see if we want to do it or not.
We'll put it on the table. I wonder if imagine Jeff's probably seen it once, right?
He's definitely seen it.
Oh man. It was so funny to see that text about Jeff with his kid. I went, what kid? I said to myself, Jeff has a kid? And he's like, oh, it's my stepdad. I'm like, oh, okay. That was funny.
Dude, I gotta eat something. I'm starting to fade here. All right, dude.
All right, bro. Do your thing.